Testing audio. If we have public comments pertaining to closed session, as provided on our public comment card, speakers are requested
Calling the meeting to order. We need reports. California School Employees Association, Nicholas Garrett. He's not here. Apple Valley Unified Teachers Association, AVUTA, Karen Sabers.
How does it feel, Karen, to be the first one up for the first meeting?
I know, it's odd. I don't, maybe I can sound intelligent without having the student speakers before me. Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Nelson, board members, cabinet, and audience. I'm going to begin this year with the same quote as last year: teamwork. Coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. I think we did a pretty good job of this last year, and know we will continue this year. AVUSD Exec Board began their teamwork in June with our work retreat. We went through Exec Board training, and then it was my turn to lead our team. We discussed 4 things that pretty much everything in life boils down to. First is teamwork. Someone, since you were little, has coached you, mentored you in some way, showed you how to be or not to be. Being a part of the team in life helps you to grow, connect better, and see others as a resource. Leadership. You can lead yourself to an outcome you are looking for, or you can lead a family, a business, or a group, but there has to be a sense of leadership. This leadership has to be transparent, honest, authentic, you have to be yourself, integral, be your word, and have compassion in order to inspire. Communication. This has to be clear and concise, which I'm not always the best at. Not only do you have to be able to communicate, but you also have to practice active listening to hear and understand what's being said. With that being said, AVUSD Exec Board created a mission statement. AVUSD seeks to build institutional trust and membership advocacy through teamwork, open communication, leadership, and problem solving. Not only do we seek to build institutional trust within AVUSD, but also build it with the district. Although this summer was busy, there were a lot of great things that took place. I was able to accompany Amanda Wright, our vice president, to Florida for the NEA annual meeting and representative council. There, she was one of our state delegates. It was incredible to experience and see democracy at work. We saw the agenda items brought forth, debates on the topic, voting from every state, a total of about 9,000 delegates, voting recalls, and revotes. We also had the privilege of hearing Secretary of State Miguel Cardona speak. I had to leave early, but Amanda continued representing our local and state. We're grateful for her dedication as our state delegate. We were then able to work with Mariana Torres and all the Family Center coordinators and other district employees that came together to fill and hand out over 13,000 backpacks to AVUSD students. AVUSD was able to apply for a grant and donate 1,440 backpacks plus materials to fill them. We were also able to have each child and some adults get a Kona Ice after picking up their backpacks. What an experience. I have the utmost respect for those that work in the family center coordinators. They're hard workers and great organizers. It was such a blessing to see everyone come together to put smiles on the students' and parents' faces. We also had the privilege of hosting lunch and speaking with our new teachers. It was nice to welcome them to the AVUSD and AVUTA family. We really have a great group of teachers beginning with us this year. And finally, I want to thank Mr. Schlosser and Ms. Nelson for meeting with Brian Todd and myself to discuss community schools. AVUSD supports community schools and is looking forward to working collaboratively with the district as one of the stakeholders. A strong partnership between educators, staff, parents, community, students, and the district are vital pieces to a successful community school which supports the whole child. AVUSD looks forward to entering back into negotiations at the end of the month. We're positive that this will lead to great outcomes for our members. Hint, hint. We are also excited to announce, okay. Hint, hint. We are also excited to announce that we are hosting Jerry Brooks as a keynote speaker for our members on September 12th. Funny thing happened today. As I walked into Sitting Bull, one of the secretaries or office personnel says, "Jerry Brooks, no way." And then they all go over, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did you hear about this? Because we haven't even talked about it or put it out there. And she said, oh, we got the rec for using the facilities. I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, can we sneak in? I said, I'm sorry. But it's exciting to be back, and we look forward to a great school year. In solidarity, Karen.
Superintendent's comments.
I think I probably could say every day is the best day in a school district, but the beginning and the end just has a special place for me. And I spent yesterday out on campuses, starting with high school, was at Granite Hills High School, and Amanda's in the audience. So I got to deliver a student to her room, several students that were freshmen looking for their classrooms, not sure where to go. And it's amazing that they'll walk to an adult and allow you to still walk them to class. But it's fulfilling, right? Because you get to have a little conversation as you go. Everywhere I went, there was cries of joy and cries of tears of parents that were having to leave their babies. But I think my favorite story of all was Phoenix Academy. They have an upper and lower campus. A woman came with 2 little children and asked if where the first grader should go. And I said, well, ma'am, you're on the wrong side, but if you trust me to walk him, I promise to deliver him to his class. So we found out what class he was in. We started the long trek. And I want you to know that he told me he was brand new to this school. And all the way across, he's looking at things. This is the neatest school. I love this school. I can't wait to start first grade. I need to learn. Kindergarten was easy. I mean, I know it all. He did some math facts for me, so I know he's ready. We got to his classroom, but on the way to the classroom, he says, what playground will I get to play on? And I said, well, this one, this huge playground. And he looks around and we pause. I'm still convinced he's new. I drop him off in his classroom. He decides he wants breakfast, so I walk him over there. And at the cafeteria, I walked to the nutrition service worker and I said, meet AJ. He's brand new here. And she goes, no, he's not. But then I had to reflect because I couldn't believe that he was so serious about all these moments. Like it was just a brand new experience. And then I realized it probably was because he was a kindergarten at Phoenix Academy. He came in a different entrance. He played on a different playground. He came to the cafeteria in a different place. And it reminded me last night that through the eyes of a child, we have a moment, right? And I think that's what's most magical about being an educator and being here to witness the things that children see through their eyes. So I had to share that story because yesterday was a reminder it takes a village. It takes every teacher, every classified staff, every person that's willing to stand there and direct children, every director in this system, coordinator, we're out on campuses making sure kids got where they needed to be. That doesn't happen without plans, systems, and we fail at some of our plans and systems, and we reflect and we fix them to do better the next time. And so I'm just proud of this district. I'm proud of our bus drivers who locate children that maybe get on wrong buses. But everybody coordinates, the police department, IT, everybody's in it. Everybody's in it to make sure they're successful. And so day 1 is over. Day 2 is over, but we've got a lot of days ahead of us, and we're going to keep doing better. I'd like to do a shout out to the Enrollment Center, who has worked tirelessly. They stayed late last week and this week. Renee Castillo was here. I tried kicking them out. They wouldn't go. Brought food in. She was constantly going and getting dinner, but they stayed and put data in so kids could get to school and be in their classes as the school day opened. The only kids that weren't in yesterday were the kids that showed up the day before, right? Because they still needed placement, and we didn't want to overflow if we didn't have to. So they just did an amazing job. And then prior to school starting, we were able to participate in National Night Out with the community. We had a booth. We had a great time visiting with our community and engaging. There's pictures of Renee with a child on her hip and passing things out. And we're gonna increase that next year. So we hope that we saw 2 of our board members there next year. If you're available, even though it happens before school starts, it really is a wonderful event to engage in this community. Apple Valley's pretty special, and I'm very lucky to get to lead this place for another year. So let's go. Let's make 23, 24 a great year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Raleigh?
Thank you, Maria. Well, I'd like to echo Karen said that, it is exciting to be back. It's only day 2. And I have spoken to some parents on day 1, and they were excited, and they said their kids were excited too. And there's a lot of excitement for the new year, and there's a lot of high expectations that it's going to be a good, normal school year, which the kids really need. So I just wanted to echo that it is excited to be back, and look forward to another year. Now, Renee did tell a story that I thought was pretty interesting, or not interesting, but kind of comical, about the girl that was dropped off at the wrong high school as a freshman. Her grandfather dropped her off. She was looking on her phone, didn't even realize until she looked up and said it's Apple Valley High and it wasn't Granite. So, and those are freshman stories I can remember,
She wasn't a freshman, she was a sophomore.
Oh, sophomore. Oh, you.
Sophomore. She should have known which high school to go to.
Oh, okay. So she'd been there before. So there's all these crazy stories, but I look forward to, sitting up here and supporting not just the kids, but the teachers as well and the staff. So, and that's what makes the district good. So I did attend an orientation with some new teachers. I believe there was about 60 of them. And I looked around the room, and there were some very young teachers. And I told them that it was an honorable profession, because it is so important today to have good teachers. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you guys the rest of the year. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Ms. Buchanan, please.
So I do want to acknowledge enrollment as well, because I noticed it on social media. I was looking through, and there was a thread of many other districts being called out for enrollment issues. And there were so many parents that were saying, well, I don't know, my children go to Apple Valley and we haven't had a single problem. And I was just kind of scrolling through like, yes. So that was fantastic. I did want to share a story. So Tuesday night, I went to Famous Footwear with my daughter to get a new pair of shoes, and it was a madhouse for the back to school shoes the night before. And there was, at one point I just needed to sit down because she's 13 and she had to try the whole store on. And so I sat down and I was waiting, and there was a young man who sat down next to me, and I guess probably middle school age. His mom was picking out shoes for him still. And I said, are you excited about school? Or I said, oh, do you start tomorrow? He said, yep. I said, are you excited? And he was kind of soft spoken. All of a sudden he goes, I am so excited. And his mom kind of came like moving over real quick, like, who is this lady that's talking to my child? I felt a little bad, but he was very excited. I thought, I hope he keeps that excitement all year long because he was so excited. But yeah, I wish everybody, to keep that excitement throughout the whole year. One last story, I did another social media story. So when Amanda was at the NEA conference, I had a couple of my other teacher friends that were there as well. And it was so exciting because I could see one of their keynote speakers was actually a 13-year-old young lady named Helena Donato, or Sap Donato. And she was there speaking. And so I could see a lot of my teacher friends sharing about her. But what I also got to see was her father. One of her fathers was one of my favorite professors when I was in college. And so he was just beaming all over about her and sharing these stories. But to watch, these professional educators that were there listening to her speak and sharing what they were learning from her, but then also just to see that pride from her father speaking, it was pretty special. So it was neat to see that from both sides. I hope as educators, because everybody that works within the school system is an educator in some sense. And I hope that we all take that moment to realize that we have that sense of importance where we can make any student be that student who then becomes that keynote speaker anywhere in the world. And so I hope that this is the year where we really take the time, get to know those kids, and send them off so that they can show what Apple Valley really is about. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arce?
I just like to kind of echo the comments that have been made about the opening of school. The last couple of days have been exciting. They've been a tremendous success. Of course, there's been the little hiccups, little speed bumps here and there, as a lot of us are aware of. But it's just a fantastic and very successful opening of school all around the district. So I just want to commend the teachers, the administrators, the classified staff. It's been a tremendously successful opening. Some of the things that I saw around the district on opening day at Apple Valley High School, it was of course first day of school, very, very busy. In fact, it looked like a rock concert was going on as you go down Navajo Road. I mean, it was backed up, almost all the way to some of the other facilities. So it's always interesting first day at Apple. But I mean, everybody was pitching in and doing their part. I talked to one of the campus police officers, and he said, yeah, it went much smoother this year than it's ever gone before. So it's, even with all the little glitches that went on, a very, very smooth opening at Apple Valley High School. At Sitting Bull, I talked to one student at Apple Valley High, and I said, "Are you excited to be back?" He goes, "Yeah, summer was like 6 months long. I'm so glad to be back." And just like, right on, brother, keep that attitude. But let's have that attitude in May. So the students are excited to be back. I know the teachers are really excited to be back. So many of them were in their classrooms in the summertime, going through professional developments in the summertime. So there's a lot of excitement going on right now. So I just know this is going to be a fantastic year. At Sitting Bull, the students were excited to be back. I talked to one mom who had kind of like Trinae said, mixed emotions. I said, are you happy school started? And she goes, well, yeah, but I'm going to miss my babies. She's had her two kids home all summer and, had that wonderful bonding time. And so some mixed emotions, but, she was really excited that school was starting. One other thing at Yuckaloma, the students were lined up to the sidewalk and then down the street, parents and students waiting to get in before the gate was even open. So Yuckaloma was just bursting at the seams. I was thankful for the district police officers that were out there doing some reteaching in terms of the curriculum of traffic laws and obeying speed limits and so on. I saw a number of officers pulling people over and doing some reteaching of some of the lessons. So hats off. Thank you to our police force keeping us all safe. And especially want to commend Mr. Clark and his staff for the outstanding back-to-school music video that they put together. We're familiar with the song Sweet Home Alabama. Well, they did a Sweet Home Yuckaloma music video, and I had no idea that Mr. Clark and his staff were so talented. So I guess I'm waiting for when their CD is gonna be coming out next. So, but anyway, just want to say I'm just really thankful for the teachers, the administrators, the classified staff, the bus drivers, the food service workers, the custodians, the superintendent staff. Mr. Wheeler and I were at Apple Valley High walking kids to the gym and getting them here and there and directing them. Just everybody was at 110%, making this to be a very smooth transition. So overall, I thought it was just an outstanding start of school, very, very successful. And I know it's going to be a fantastic year this year because we have such a fantastic team here in this district. So thank you to everyone who had a part of it.
Thank you so much. Well, it's my turn. I did not go out to the schools for the first day because I don't like to complicate matters. I think the teachers are fine, thank you. The teachers can do it, the administrators can do it, and the security can do it, and did not want to step into that space and inconvenience the principals trying to make sure a board member was comfortable. I just wanted to go when I don't make matters worse. But this summer was very interesting because I got invited to go to a training. And I'm going to start out by saying it was a one of a kind for me because it was a training put together by a nationally known group or a nationally known consultants. And I was the only school board member nationwide that attended. So they made such a big deal about me being there. And I almost crawled under the seat because I thought, that's too much attention. So I'm going to read you what I wrote about that training because I sat in the leadership team. I don't want to miss anything, so I wrote it. And anybody that knows me knows I don't like to write my speech. I like to free speak. The Safe and Civil Schools Conference in Portland proved to be a profoundly enlightening experience with its focused 4-day intensive institutes on attendance, coaching, instruction, and intervention, along with a particularly noteworthy session on leadership in behavior supports. That was the one I attended, the leadership piece. What stands out is the conference's approach to addressing different tiers of school culture and student needs, encompassing school-wide, classroom management, and individual student support. The utilization of the STOIC, STOIC framework was a diagnostic tool is of particular interest. This framework emphasizes key principles. The first principle is the structure for success, adapting variables like physical settings, schedules, routines, and procedures to positively influence student behavior. Number 2 was to teach expectations, actively teaching students the necessary skills and behavioral expectations for success. Number 3 was to observe and monitor, using effective supervisory techniques and objective data for decision-making and trend analysis. Number 4 was to interact positively, prioritizing respectful treatment of all students, providing positive attention and constructive feedback. Number 5 was correct fluently, responding calmly, consistently, briefly, and immediately to misbehavior. Don't put them off. The core belief that adults can shape systems to encourage desired behavior while minimizing disruptive actions underscores the conference's philosophy. What I noted was that our school district's investment in foundational aspects, classroom management, coaching, and attendance reflects our budgetary commitment to fostering positive change within the educational landscape. In conclusion, the conference's insights and strategies aligned with a forward-looking vision for cultivating a conducive educational environment that benefits the entire school community. So I do encourage other board members to attend this exquisite conference for the next summer. I have to say that because I come from the field of education, my passion is a little different. My passion is, what is it that benefits a child? My passion is, if you are sending us a child for discipline, have you taken the time to teach that skill that the student is supposedly broken? If you didn't teach it, then I'm going to hold you responsible. I'm going to say, show me how you taught this skill so that I can better follow. So for me to go to this conference, it was particularly important for me to know what the schools are doing and where we allocate our funds, so that when I go into a classroom or when I go into a school, I would like to know what level you are on. But the fun part of this conference that I attended is that not all of the people that came to that conference went to the same session. So they had 4 days of intensive, and I mean intensive, sessions. The principal at Desert Knolls was cracking her head trying to figure out, where do I put this? What do I do here? And I just sat, just trying to figure out, what is she thinking about? What is she doing? Because I do not know. But it was good for me to see the actual play in it. Then you see people from human resources, and I'm thinking to my head, why do they care? Yes, they care, because this has to do with the human beings that we're going to manage to help them out. So I don't like to waste too many people's times, but I am really interested in the trainings you offer your staff so that they can be better equipped to be able to help the students. I have had several conversations with the management team on this dais, to be sure that whenever, my passion is special ed, make no mistakes. That's my passion. If you do something on special education, I will show up at your school. I will see it for myself. So let us be very clear on what we do with special ed or whatever the issues may be before I show up. Because when I show up, it's not going to be on the pretty end, because I'll take the superintendent with me to come see what I'm seeing. So I know that we are all aiming for the stars. But let's not forget those students who are still striving, trying to get there. I don't do all these fluffy things yet, but I'm paying attention to how we use our LCAP funds. I'm paying attention to what we do in terms of services that we are offering. And I'm paying attention to how we celebrate the people who are in the trenches. I can say that on this second day of school, that we actually saw the best that we've got, and the best is yet to come. We have teachers, administrators, everybody pulled up their sleeve and they've got ready for work. Let us not let our children down. Thank you so much for your time. Going to closed session reports. Conference on Litigation, Government Code 54954.5, subsection D, Pedrosa, Carolina versus Apple Valley School District. On a motion by Mr. Raleigh, seconded by Mr. Arce, the board voted unanimously to deny the claim of Carolina Pedrosa, and one board member is absent. Our president is absent today, so it's marked as absent. Public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, transfer. On a motion by Mrs. Buchanan and seconded by Mr. Arce, the Board of Trustees approved the following. They approved the separation agreement between the Apple Valley Unified School District and employee number 2096. Mr. Bender is out, and the rest of them voted yes. public employee appointment, resignation, retirement, reduction on a motion by Maria Okpara, seconded by Mr. Raleigh on a vote of 4-0. The Board of Trustees approved the following. Appoint Anna Husky as Executive Assistant, Range 37, Step 2, on the non-exempt classified supervisory and confidential salary schedule 222 base duty days, effective July 24th, 2023. Okay. The board may approve the agenda as is or add and/or pull items from the consent agenda for discussion and/or action. I need a motion.
I'd like to discuss item number 31.
Okay. We have to pull it first,
Okay.
right?
I'll make a motion that we approve items other than item 31, which will be pulled.
We're not
second
doing
that.
approval right now. All you're doing is adopting the agenda.
And
Okay.
then you pull.
So you
We have to adopt the agenda.
can adopt the agenda, and when we get to the consent agenda, you can pull that
Okay,
item.
I'll amend the motion then to the adoption of the agenda. There you go.
Kylie's probably watching. We better do well.
You said she doesn't have a voice though, so.
Okay, now who's seconding it?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. RC seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we have a discussion, information, adopted state budget and AVUSD budget adjustments. Mr. Schulenberg.
Thanks for the presentation, man.
You have a printed copy in front of you, thank
Welcome to
goodness.
the first day of school.
Jason, a little tech help? Please, if you would.
It's one of those puzzles where you have to like move the tile.
Well, we'll go with it. I think.
Do you have any good notes?
Yeah, I got it. Sorry for the pause. I don't have it on this. Let's just go with it. There you go. All right, I did have it. Hey, thank you. My apologies. As mentioned, this is an update on the adopted state budget, and any of those material budget changes that we have to make, of course, we're required to make those public within 45 days of the state adopted budget, which is in fact today. Just a couple things on the state adopted budget, and you'll notice this slide presentation is mostly cribbed from School Services of California, their July 20th budget workshop. which I believe AVUDA and CSCA both had representatives attending the online session. I believe I'm seeing a head nod there from Karen. Thank you. So a lot of this information it's been out for a while. And our bargaining unit partners, of course, were able to watch. Some things you'll notice that the state revenues have actually softened, and which is not a good thing when state revenues directly affect revenues for local educational agencies like ourselves. They also delayed the personal income tax to October, so they adopted the state budget on mainly a lot of assumptions, some unknowns. Typically, of course, the tax filing deadline is in the spring, and the state has a great idea of what their revenues are going to be. So that's just one of those things. The Prop 98 minimum guarantee, of course, although higher than last year, it's below the 21-22 levels. And one of the good note that the Prop 98 minimum guarantee has grown significantly since the inception of the local control funding formula back in 2012, 2013, as Governor Brown switched us from the revenue limit over to the LCFF. Now, keep in mind, that is merely the delivery model for the funding. Prop 98 sets the funding level. One bad thing is the governor has made the decision and the legislature agreed to use some one-time revenues at the state to support ongoing LCFF payments to school districts. So one thing that the state preaches to school districts, and as part of our budget adoption cycle and part of the county schools review of our budget, is we have to justify using any one-time resources for things that are not just one-time expenses. So what the state chastises us when we do it, they did it. Not a good practice in terms of ongoing budgets. And there's some grant programs, mainly the arts music education block grant and the learning recovery block grant, where Governor Newsom proposed some fairly significant cuts, but they did restore those significant cuts to what I would call minor cuts, but still did cut some of those one-time funds that many districts have relied on to maintain operations. So there's some risks that we face, that the state faces, mainly an uncertain economy, mainly the rising costs and slowing revenues. It says but I want to use the word and. Policymakers made several budget decisions that are creating greater risks, not only at the state level, but at the local level. And you can see a little bit there about the COLA. They did fund the full 8.22% COLA using some of those one-time funds, when the legislature, of course, does have the power to reduce or increase that COLA, as they have done in years past. New and higher education spending obligations, of course, the one-time money. And one of the things on the revenue side at the state level, Governor Newsom and the legislature in their discussions back and forth, Governor Newsom had an idea of what the state revenues were going to be, and it was a little bit higher than the legislative analyst's office. And he had an idea of what property tax revenue was going to be, which is a little bit lower than the LAOs. So what they decided to do in order to buoy up Prop 98 is they used the governor's higher revenue estimates for personal income tax, corporate tax, and sales tax, and they used the LAO and the legislature's higher property tax estimates. So their estimates, of course, come in higher than probably what's going to be reality. And right here, this is just a little history. And of course, at the 23-24 on the right-hand side, you see the governor's budget. The Prop 98 minimum guarantee was set at about $109 million initially in his January proposal, but they reduced that to 106. But then they settled on the higher property tax portion for the enacted budget, which brought the Prop 98 minimum guarantee back up to $108 million. Higher than 22-23, not as high as the 21-22 enacted budget. Again, the LCFF is the funding model that distributes the money to school districts. And we really have those base grants for each of our grade spans. You see them up there, K3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 12. And those base grants increase by that COLA. Now, that does not mean we get 8.22% more money. That means those base grants increase But remember, those base grants are directly affected and calculated using our ADA. So if our ADA varies from year to year, even though there's an increase of 8.2% in a base grant, we might not get 8.2% new money, depending on our ADA. And you'll see there's the grade span adjustments, of course, for the K3 and the 9-12, and then, of course, the supplemental and concentration grants. And this is kind of a detailed slide, but this really illustrates how the base grants are calculated. And they actually broke out TK in this particular chart, even though TK is considered part of our 2-year kindergarten program, because TK has an add-on of $3,044 in the 23-24 school year for each of our TK ADA that we earn. So really the line to look at is the 23-24 adjusted base grant per ADA. That really kind of shows you the disparity in LCFF funding from transitional kindergarten through the different grade spans up to high school. The state legislature and the governors, they recognize it takes a lot of money to educate a transitional kindergarten student because the classes are capped at 24. And it's a 24 to 2 adults in the classroom ratio, hence a higher funding level in that grade span. K through 3, of course, is 24, but it's not a 2 to 24 ratio. And then, of course, they recognize the need for really the add-on for 9 through 12 is for the career technical education, all the different academic programs that happens at high schools that are kind of not typical in your elementary and middle school programs. And then, of course, the supplemental grant and concentration grant. No, those are not the actual grant amounts. Those are the grant amounts if a district qualified for all of the supplemental grant. But of course, you have to multiply that grant by your ADA and then by 20% and then by your unduplicated pupil percentage. So inevitably, it's a little bit less than that. The ADA trends that they've experienced across the state. We're, of course, a unified, and pre-pandemic, across the state, unified school districts averaged right in the mid to high 94% in terms of ADA. And we were right on par with those. We were typically 94.8, 94.9, 95 on a really good month, but we were very close to that average. Of course, there's no data for 2021. We kind of all know what happened that year. 21, 22 coming back. It was a tough year for schools across the state of California. You see the average ADA in a unified school district drop below 90%, and that was very true for us also. And we did not recover as much as districts across the state did in 22, 23. We did not get to 91%. We were still right around 90, but we're hoping with the excitement to beginning of the school year, all the happy kids going to school, they continue to go to school, and our ADA bounces back this year, because that does have a direct impact on the amount of funding available to support our programs for our students. Come on, switch. I did this to me last time. Let's try again. There we go. I'm paying attention this time. So this is just a quick snapshot. This is in our budget. You'll notice our per ADA funding averages $14,171. That is putting all of that LCFF funding together and averaging it per our ADA. That's not how much we get for a TK versus a high school, of course, like that other slide just demonstrated. And you'll see our funded ADA for this year is still based on our 3-year average. That's kind of a safety net the state put in place to make up for the years of COVID and post-COVID when ADA numbers were so low. So we'll continue to use that as long as it's advantageous in that ADA calculation. But if our single year ADA, of course, surpasses that, we have the opportunity to use that ADA for our funded ADA for the year. So that's just our projected LCFF revenue for this year, a little shy of $180 million. That is only LCFF. We have other state revenue on top of that, of course, federal revenue, but that is the LCFF portion of our revenue to support our programs. You may hear about the LCFF equity multiplier, and I wanted to mention it here just because it's something that is out there. It is some legislation that was started and vetoed a couple years ago to really target the poorest kids across the state of California. And it it was argued back and forth many times, and then Governor Newsom pledged to put it into the budget trailer bill, not as a separate legislation piece. So it's in the LCFF as an equity multiplier based on, you'll see the three factors there, the socioeconomically disadvantaged, and you see a list of what they consider socioeconomically disadvantaged. You see non-stability rate. Those are for schools and school districts with a high transient student population, kids that come and go a lot. And of course, they have an adjusted cumulative enrollment, and that's where they calculate how long students are enrolled in a certain school. We unfortunately will not qualify for any of this money, but I just want you to be aware it is part of the LCFF. They've dedicated about $300 million for it across the state, but we don't qualify. But if you do hear about it, it is something that is out there and it does exist. I know that's a lot of numbers. This is the dartboard that school services produces. You'll see up top, it's for not only this year, but last year, because things can still adjust a little bit, this year and then the next 3. This is what we use in our multi-year projection when we're looking at out-year cost of living adjustments, when we're looking at the CPI, when we're looking at the CalSTRS employer contribution rate, you see, which is at 19.1% throughout the life of this particular chart, and also the CalPERS employer contribution rate, which you'll see steadily increases over the next 4 years. It's just a piece of information that school services produces, puts together, and this is what school districts use in our multi-year projection planning. I mentioned a couple of those block grants. The Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Block Grant and the Learning Recovery Block Grant, where we budgeted for significant reductions. Fortunately, the significant reductions didn't come to fruition in the enacted budget, although they both were reduced. So we are adjusting our budget accordingly for those 2 programs. We are not part of the school bus replacement, the zero emission school bus infrastructure, or the Golden State Pathways program at this point. So this next slide, when it switches, these are the 2 grants, and these are the material adjustments we've made in our budget. You'll see for those 2 grants, the original planned allocation was 7.6 for the Arts Music grant and a little over 20 million for the Learning Recovery Block grant. When we adopted our budget in June, we had assumed approximately 50% reductions in both of those programs, which is the governor had proposed back in his May revision. Fortunately, after lots of go-arounds with the governor and the state legislatures, they still reduced them, but not to that significance. So you'll see the update on each of those. We will adjust our budget accordingly to recognize that those particular grant revenues as we move forward. So those are our material adjustments based on the adopted state budget. Prop 28, you may have heard. Prop 28, they're estimating funding at approximately $938 million across the state. And this is really to focus more on those arts education. However, this is money not to supplant, so we cannot pay for existing services. This means we come up with additional services to support our arts education. And you'll see up there on the right-hand side a requirement to expend at least 80% of funds to employ staff for arts education program instruction. So I would imagine Mr. Conrad and his HR team over the next time will be looking for more people to support this program. Jeremiah? Okay. All right. Then they come out of the woodwork. But anyways, that's a little bit of information on Prop 28, which the voters passed, which now becomes a part of our annual revenue. And of course, there are reporting requirements. So looking ahead, they said the forecast is hazy. It absolutely is. Nobody really knows what the economy is going to do, although there are many economists that predict we're going to come in for a soft landing, maybe not an actual recession. Fortunately, inflation is finally abating a little bit, and the labor market remains strong. Unemployment is at all-time lows across the country, which is a great thing. But there's still some economic uncertainty as we look out. And of course, gas prices are going right back up right now. If any of you have filled up a car with a large gas tank recently, you'll see that. But a couple of things school services recommends is really know our local program and our local priorities, because we're really going to have to know those when times begin tough, and when times get tough, if the state revenues don't rebound to cover that one-time money that Governor Newsom, then of course the state will be impacted and we will be impacted on a local level. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Early on in your presentation, Matt, you mentioned because of the postponement of taxes due in
Mhm.
October
Yes,
instead of April 15th, that the budget's risky.
yes.
So does it make our budget this year at the district as well if the revenues or the projected tax returns do not come in as proposed? Would that negatively affect us? Could the state pull funding back and say, well, it's not as rosy as we thought, so.
Absolutely, Mr. Rowley. That's a great question. If you didn't hear the question, it's related to the delayed income tax receipts at the state level not coming in until October. And the budget was built on some assumptions that they were going to maintain a fairly reasonable level of personal income tax receipts. And if those don't come true, yes, it's very possible that the state will look at education budgets, and they have a lot of options in what they can do. Word on the street is that they will not touch this year, but they will significantly touch next year. But they do have the ability to cut us mid-year if those tax receipts are significantly lower than what's projected. They also have the ability to defer cash apportionments, which means that we don't get our cash on time on the regular apportionment schedule. So that might cause us the need to borrow to have cash on hand to pay vendors and make payroll. But yes, they absolutely could impact us this year. And most likely, if those tax receipts don't come true, we will certainly be impacted next year.
And will we get a heads up? I mean, is it going to be just sudden, or will you kind of read the tea leaves and say, well, we better button up the hatches? And
Well, with those receipts coming in October, we can count on whatever the governor proposes to come with his January budget proposal. His January budget proposal will be focused on the 24-25 fiscal year.
Okay.
However, they can always make adjustments to this year's revenues in that budget proposal. So there may be some actions in the current year proposed in January that may take effect fairly quickly. But most likely, school services believes, and other consultants believe, most of the impact will be in the 24-25 budget year. So we will have some time to prepare.
okay, thanks. Good presentation. Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Yes.
Do we still have the P count in December? Or has it been taken away and we just do a P count differently?
I'm sorry, Ms. Oak, part of it.
P1 and P2. I know that the P2 is usually around December time. So I'm just wondering, do we still do that?
The P1 and P2 attendance accounting,
Mhm.
yes, those still do exist. The P1 occurs in the fall, and the P2 occurs in the spring. P2 for us is typically right around spring break because it's the end of the attendance month that ends prior to April 15th. So I believe our P2 for this school year is either the Friday of spring break or the Friday just prior to spring break.
So do
It
we
seems
have-
like that's when we have the most kids, because some of them don't come back after spring break. So
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if we have something in place to make sure that they are on campus to be counted on those days.
well, it's not that we count them on that day. That is our P2. So if a student attends day 1 through the end of attendance month 8, the end of our P2 period, if they're in school every day, they happen to count for 1 ADA. If they're in school 90% of the days in that span, they're 90% of 1 ADA. So it's not a count on that day. It's a cumulative accounting of their attendance from day 1 to P2 reporting.
Okay, the next question that I have is that the forecast doesn't look good, or at least it says it's hazy. So if the forecast is hazy, and let's say the state decides that they were going to pull some funds away from the schools, will the state will they allow us as a district to go back and revisit the LCAP, which is what is driving our funding? Will they allow us to go revisit it so that we can also adjust our funding?
Well, absolutely. We review and rework our LCAP on an annual basis based on what our allocation is. And as I mentioned earlier with Mr. Raleigh's question, the thought is the majority of the budgetary impact will be in the 24-25 year as the most likely proposed in his January budget proposal, which is well within the timeline that Mr. Schlosser and his team have to review and gather stakeholder input in our LCAP process to make necessary adjustments if our supplemental on concentration revenue and our LCF revenue is lower.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Staff Professional Development Report, Mr. Schlosser.
I'd like to invite Theda Smith, Director of Curriculum Instruction. She's going to help me out with this presentation. Matt has numbers, but we have numbers also. So come on up. Yeah, Matt's numbers mean a lot more, but our numbers represent just a wonderful summer that we had together. So a few numbers for you to think about, and then Theda's going to put some context to how we made all that happen. 1,407, that's the number of folks who signed up for and attended a professional development this summer. Now, those ranged in time from, we had 1-hour sessions here presented by Kaiser for wellness for teachers and staff to 5-day sessions that new teachers participated in to really bring them into the district, and more on that later. But we just had a wonderful response to our summer professional development program, and we were just so happy to see that happen. The topics that were presented this summer, they were actually facilitated by staff survey. What kinds of things did they want to have? But we ended up with 50 different things. You'll see a little more detail later, but they were in very specific categories and united with our LCAP goals and the needs of the staff who were requesting that. This is the big one. This is how you get them there in the morning. So much coffee. More on raisin snails in a moment. Ratio of Danishes to chocolate. This is an important recipe for success. You've got to get people fed. Now, we weren't able to provide lunch in the summer. We usually do that with our high school kitchens who are closed. So we did have to send folks out. In some cases, like with the generosity of AVUSD, we were able to provide lunch to new teachers, and we were able to do that a couple of the days as well. And so just a little context to those numbers, Theda will kind of walk us through that.
Thank you. Of course, I get nervous and I've got hiccups now, so excuse me. Just my luck. Okay, so we had 750 Danishes were enjoyed and consumed by the teachers that participated, but 150 pounds of chocolate was also enjoyed and endured. And all the coffee, the 70 gallons of coffee were orchestrated and set up and delivered by my curriculum instruction team. That would be, many of you know who Jessica is, and Justin and Anna and Teresa. So they did it. They would get here at 6 o'clock in the morning, start brewing coffee and start boxing up Danishes. And I would pull up by 7 and they would load my car and load their cars. And we were off going to all of the school sites where we were holding PDs at. So I'm really proud of them. And I want to thank them for that. They did a lot of hard work there. We also, our summer professional learning, it varied, but most of the topics were surrounded around classroom management, curriculum and instruction, technology, intervention, and support. And the icons that you see below, those are just a few of the consultants that we brought into our district to work with our teachers. In your packets, you'll see on the next page several other consultants that we had and trainings that we had, such as QTEL, Thinking Maps, Fresh Start. This was a new one, and it was developed by our own teachers this year. It was a huge success. We also brought Kagan in, and that was a big hit. That was one of our biggest hits. We also had training for our special ed teachers in the area of SACE and Boys Town. We did Hegarty, so there was a lot of trainings that took place. In addition to providing PDs, we also had teachers and a board member that went out to conferences this summer. And so there was a variety of conferences, and you'll see on the next page of your packets also the conferences that we sent people to, such as Visible Learning, which I got to attend in Florida. I learned I do not like the humidity in Florida, but the conference was excellent, and it tied into everything such as Safe and Civil. It was a wonderful conference. We also sent teachers to CABE, the Avid Summer Institute, Avid Ignite, and many others. Tremaine Dance Institute, that was a great one also. For our new teachers, we put together 5 days of intensive training. And during that training, they learned about Apple Valley Unified School District's philosophy and core values. They also learned about classroom management. They were trained in STOIC and CHAMPS and discipline in the secondary classrooms. They worked really hard that whole week and were very overwhelmed. They got to have a lunch with our superintendent and her cabinet, as well as a day with the board and a day with AVUSD. They also got to sit alongside their instructional coaches and learn with them. And I thought the best thing of these trainings were they got to make friends throughout the districts, the teachers that work at other school sites that not necessarily there. So they have a friend to collaborate with during the school year. They also received a swag bag. And in the swag bag, so every day, the first day they showed up and they got their backpack, their Apple Valley backpack, and they got their technology. And the IT team taught them how to use the technology, correctly. They received the water tumbler. They got both, the Safe and Civil books from CHAMPS and the DSC books. They also got our first year teacher playbook, which was a huge success and I'm proud of. And they also received their Thinking Maps binders for all the lessons that they could do. So they received a lot of items. Next, you will see, here's some of the feedback that they provided us with. At the end of all of our PDs, we ask our teachers to do evaluations and provide us with feedback. And I keep saying teachers, but I want to correct that it's not only teachers that attended our PDs. It was our counselors, our SLP, our, paraeducators. So they were available for our staff, basically, for Apple Valley. So I'll give you a minute to take a look at some of the comments. And then there's another page of comments. And these are just a few, but we've got stacks and stacks and stacks of them. And so from all of our summer PDs, and as summer's coming to an end, that doesn't end what we do during the year. Our PDs continue on into the fall and the remainder of the year. So in the fall, we start off with, the behavioral expectations, and we continue with curriculum and instruction trainings. These are also provided by our in-house resources, which are our induction team, our SEL teachers, our SPED TOAs, our district PD coordinator, and our ed tech coordinator. These people up here, they work really hard throughout the year to work with the teachers. They not only work with them after school doing PD trainings, but they also push into the classrooms during the year. So they really, truly are there for our teachers, principals, and the entire staff. I'm going to let you.
Yeah, and what I should also mention, this is, of course, LCAP goal number 1, which is all about bringing professional learning to our staff. And chief among that is not only these times outside the school year, and as Theda mentioned, during the school year, but we also believe heavily in providing instructional coaching alongside teachers all year long. And so, of course, our instructional coaches not only delivered a lot of this training, but they were participants as well. They sat alongside teachers and learned next to them so they can go now into those classroom settings and be a support. And so the support doesn't end now that students are back. But we're excited to be able to offer professional learning again during the school year. We know that the Human Resources Department has worked hard to develop a substitute pool again so that we can begin to pull small groups of teachers very carefully for high quality learning, because we know that keeping that teacher in front of students is critically important, but also to keep that learning happening through the school year is also helpful for those, that increase. And so the final thing, we did include Lisa Wood as a PD coordinator has included a small brochure that just kind of gives principals an idea of the menu of items that we can do in-house. She provides that, as do our SEL wellness teachers on assignment. They provide those on a Wednesday for a principal who wants to do that. They can provide those to a small group during the day. And so she's able to really target that instruction and learning so that that continues at the discretion of the teams at the school sites and what they need. So we'll pause there for questions.
Question from me. Do you by any chance have opportunities where you allow the teacher to go outside of their school site to go and see another teacher doing what they're supposed to be doing, so that they don't all rely on their professional coach, but they can see somebody in similar position doing the exact same thing so that they can get the learning? Do you all have the opportunities for those?
Yeah, there's probably 3 ways. You want to talk about Karen Haresky's way of doing that first?
So one way that they get to do it is through those that are going through the induction program, as well as those that are just being mentored. They're not yet in the induction program, but they do have mentors. So we set up days, we reserve subs, we set up days to guarantee that they can get into a classroom at another school site, because things may look different at other school sites, and they can learn from them and learn about the different clienteles and how schools operate. They enjoy that. And I will tell you that during COVID, when we couldn't let them do that, they were struggling. So now they right away, first thing, hit us up. When do I get to go see somebody else? They're excited to get out
Good.
there. And that's really the best learning for them.
Good. Thank you.
I have a question, Maria.
I don't have a question. Go ahead.
So it looks like the staff development is extensive.
Yeah.
And has it always been this extensive? Are you guys stepping it up each year, doing more and more?
We're actually just getting back to where
getting
we
back
were.
to it whereas before.
Yes, I mean,
COVID?
I'm just disappointed to say that it was actually this robust pre-COVID. And when right before, really, we started to have a sub shortage probably about 2 years before. But I would say in 12, 13, in the initial rollout of some of the curriculum changes that the state came up with, we would often have an entire grade level here to go through the curriculum, look at their standards, really dig into that pretty frequently. And so we're just now getting back to that, and we're very excited to do this. Now, the focus has changed just slightly in response to demand from the staff as to meet their needs. But we are just now, Mr. Raleigh, hitting what we used to do.
Well, that's good to hear. Good to know, and keep it up.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. And Mrs. Okpara, I'll just also add that there are places where there is no way to see a teacher doing your same kind of work at your site sometimes. And so sometimes, even if they're not an induction candidate, but they may be a special ed teacher who just doesn't have a corollary on campus, the only way to kind of see someone else do that work is to allow them a day. And we try to make sure they're accompanied by either our maybe one of the special ed teachers on assignment who really have a good sense in the district of where it is best to see that, or a site administrator. As a site administrator, I did that several times and took someone to view another place because there just wasn't anyone else doing that at our school. It's very helpful.
The other question I have is regarding the SACE. You have the SACE training that you have offered to special ed. How long was the training, and are they fully trained? And if they're fully trained, do they have the skills or the time required to be able to log whatever they need to put into the system?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Here's
Okay.
why. SACE is being rolled out in our SELPA area by our SELPA, and it is actually not yet even available for teachers. So the training we did was an introductory training to help them understand what the system will be able to do and what it can do. But we had to do all that really kind of in static mode. We don't even have live SACE data yet. And they haven't even given us a firm date as to when that will be. As soon as we do, we will very much target that training for teachers. We know they need it, but we can't yet deliver it in a way that's actually interactive and personalized to them until that system is operational.
But my concern regarding it, because I've seen it at play, is the amount of time it takes to document all of that information and to also be responsible for doing your IEPs and to also teach your courses. So that's where my focus is on how much time you are going to give to these teachers and what will it look like for our district so that that teacher is not overwhelmed with doing what they need to do as a teacher under their credential and what they need to do outside of that to be able to fit in for the SAYS. So
Yep.
that needs to also be in place when you guys are having this conversation to be sure that it's done adequately.
Understood.
Thank you. I have one question that has been eating away at me, and it has really nothing to do with what you were saying, but
I think Mr. Conrad would like to answer this question.
but it's one of those, anybody that knows me knows I'm always curious. I'm always asking questions. And I just want to know, I asked Renee this a while back. I was driving and all of a sudden I stopped to send her a text to figure out how did we come up with lunchtime being 30 minutes and every other class period is 50 minutes? How did we come up with that?
I'm going to take an attempt to answer that question and defer to the experts here if need be. But for us in Told, we have an instructional minutes requirement.
Mhm.
And at every other grade except for TK and K, lunchtime is not considered an instructional minutes time. And so unless we were to expand the boundaries of the school day, either later or earlier, and of course, therefore also negotiate expanded contract hours from our staff, we would not be able to expand the school day or the lunchtime without encroaching in those instructional minutes which are required by law. Close? Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds close, but it just doesn't make sense because we are constantly telling our children to take their time to chew their food and to eat slowly. And then we put them in this space and they have 30 minutes window and they stand in the window for 10 minutes to actually get their lunch. And now they have 10 minutes to, shove this thing down so that they can at least have 5 minutes to play. So I think about it because where I come from, lunch is actually a full hour for a student. Or when I went to school overseas, it was all 1 hour or at least 55 minutes so that students will have the opportunity to eat and learn the skills of eating. Because we have them in our homes and they want to eat and run. And it's like, wait a minute, family time is for you to sit on this dining table until we're done eating. But the child has it in their brain that is a 20-minute deal. So I'm confused. I want somebody to at least look at it. I'm going to call my state senator and ask, can you at least look into this? Because this is important for our kids to learn how to eat in a public space.
Got it. Thank you.
Anyway.
Mr. Strauss, I'd just like to say thank you for the extensive training that you and your team put together for the new teachers. I talked to so many new teachers who were so grateful, so thankful for that. And they felt connected to our district. They felt supported. And in the new teacher training, there weren't just new teachers. There were new teachers who had experience, but were new to our district.
Yes.
And I talked to a number of teachers who've been teaching 5, 6, 7 years. And they said they wish they would have had that when they first started because they felt so incorporated, so supported, so part of our Apple Valley family and Apple Valley team. So it was the comments I heard from the new teacher training were overwhelmingly positive. And so I just want to thank you and your team for the outstanding work that you did.
They knocked it out. Thank you.
Okay. Caprice, do we have any public comments? Thank you. Carrie Childress. I remember you. Everybody from my past.
I beg your pardon. I'm stumbling over brand new orthotics that I just got today. Good evening, all. My name is Carrie Childress. I have been a resident of Apple Valley since 1978. I am very familiar with the education available to Apple Valley students as our son attended Yuckaloma Elementary, Apple Valley Junior High School on this very campus, and Apple Valley High School, graduating in 1989. I've also been a teacher at Victor Valley Junior High School. When I left, they just bulldozed the whole place. And Hesperia High School. Regretfully, I've not had the pleasure of teaching in this district because my son threatened to quit school if his mother was hovering over him. I am a strong believer, very strong believer in public education, and I cannot emphasize its importance enough. It is a national treasure. I am particularly concerned about the core academic subjects: English, math, science, history, social studies. Those subjects are critical, and they are the basis of all education. They're not flashy, you can't show them off, but they are essential. And they have come under criticism. The California Department of Education has long developed, written, revised, updated the content standards for every single subject at every single grade level in California schools through extensive research in all avenues of endeavor. But I don't think that is common public knowledge. And I think common public knowledge about the content standards would do a lot towards supporting what you're trying to do every day. The content standards tell educators what students need to know, understand, and be able to do at each grade level, in kindergarten, in elementary school, in middle school, and high school, so that their education will be consistently successful and they will be able to graduate prepared to enter their adult life, wherever that may lead them. May I suggest that a deliberate, detailed, and planned public information program about the content standards will help the general public be able to understand what your district goals are. It will also assist the general public in evaluating your progress towards those goals. I encourage everyone to visit the California Department of Education. That's even on your district website. Put content standards in the search, and the wealth of information they will find is very well organized and easily available to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I must say that I know Carrie. I've known you since 1978. So when I looked up and saw you, I thought, is that her? So I have two people from my past that are here. So I need to be of my best behavior. Superintendent's comments.
Just a couple things. Kylie is watching. She texted me. I saw it on my watch. So we must be following all of the guidelines or she's going to call in, I think. I wanted to thank Caprice for being here tonight to support us and step up at the last minute when Kylie was sick. And then one of the things we did do this year with our new teachers is provide them a book called Mrs. Spritzer's Garden. It's about tending to a garden and how you foster basically take care of things to make them grow and expand. And so did that with a seed packet for every new teacher with our values on it. I know that with the professional development presentation, there's a lot that we do in this district to support our teachers. And so, and classified staff. One of the things that we learned this summer as we were talking about what might be missing in our district was discussions around district mandate versus district initiative versus site initiative, and then just nice to do, right? We want to focus. We want to stay focused. And when we start stepping outside of that focus, it's really difficult to support and nurture the things that we are trying to increase knowledge on within our district. So I think that those were some great things that Ms. Okpara talked about having to do with Stoic. I walked into a kindergarten class the first day of school at Rio Vista, first year teacher. I'm going to say Mrs. Wells so that she knows that she was much appreciated, and the Stoic framework was in place. She had set up systems for success. She had taught the expectations, and her kinders at 10 o'clock in the morning were able to tell me what they were supposed to be doing at the different moments for transition, for bathroom. And that was in the first hour and a half of school for them. So it's not a one and done. You have to keep doing it. And it's the only way we will get systems in place if we keep teaching them. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowley,
Nothing further. Thank you.
Ms. Buchanan.
I'd like to make a request if we could for when if we could get those calendars again, starting again. I know it's the beginning. And
She actually has one, and I'll have to send it to you because Kylie was out. She formats it, so it's ready. It's just very small this time because it's the first month of
Right.
school, but she is on it. She has it.
Okay. And then also I saw Dolores Williams come in, and I just wanted to add to my comments that she was kind enough to invite me out to see her program and her school over the summer with Miss Akpara. And it was just phenomenal to see what she's doing for the community students. We went during the robotics program, and just kind of to see all the young engineers learning I kind of wanted to play with everything, but I am not, that's not my side of the brain, but it was pretty awesome to see what the students were creating. So I don't know if there's any way we can support any of that, but it was fantastic.
Mr. Arce.
Nothing further.
For me, nothing yet. Let's go to discussion action session. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees discuss take action on the following items. Adopt the declaration of need for fully qualified educators form to be effective from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, as required by the California Commission on Teacher Credentials. I need a motion.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, the only discussion that I have is that when we have those teachers that we get, that we make sure that we don't put our most vulnerable children in that class as yet until they are fully qualified. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Approve the certificated and classified personnel actions as listed. I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approve the recommendation for requested leaves as noted. I need a motion.
I'll move.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees consider approving a number of agenda items as a consent list. Consent items are routine in nature and can be enacted in one motion without further discussion. This procedure conserves meeting time for a full discussion of significant issues. I would like to note 2 clerical errors were noticed after posting on item number 3. That was approve the minutes of the May 18th board meeting. On the last page, the second motion for adjournment states Mrs. Dennis Bender and needs to reflect Mr. Dennis Bender. Additionally, item number 10, approve the memorandum of understanding and agreement to provide student-teacher placements to university students with California State University, Easy Bay, and the Apple Valley Unified School District. The item should reflect the university as California State University, East Bay. The MOU attachment has the correct spelling of the university.
Ms.
Okay.
Okpara, before you guys move forward with either pulling any of the actions, though it states that there's a clerical error, you're fine with the draft minutes. That's part of accepting them or not accepting them to modify. As far as number 10, you have two options. One, you can move forward because of the clerical error, because the actual contract that was attached does
Was
say
correct.
East Bay and was correct. Or it doesn't impact anybody in the district, and if the board would feel better with us posting it again and bringing it back to the September meeting, we can do that as well.
Well, I think that since we have already made the correction on tape, and the document that you have, the official document that you're going to submit is already corrected, that we go ahead and approve it as is. What do you all think?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. Consent items to be approved in one motion, 1 through 50. And now you can pull.
I make a motion that we pull item number 31 for discussion.
And I would like to pull item number 17, 19. Where did I write them down? 17 and 19 for now. I think I had another item 37 and 41. Okay, up for discussion. So we are going to approve the other ones and then we'll have the discussion. I need the motion to approve item number,
1 through 50, with the exception of 10, 17, 19, 31, 37, 41. Not 10, we're leaving
No.
10 in.
No,
You guys,
so 10.
okay.
Right.
So 1 through 50 with 17, 19, 31, 37, 41 pulled.
yes, all in favor? No, I need a- I need
So we
somebody
need
to-
we need a second on that
I
motion.
need somebody to.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item number 17 and item number 19, I pulled them because I'm kind of curious about why we have an agreement with a company that stated in that agreement, it is to transport students with disability. However, for every 2 minutes they have to wait, 2 minutes, we are going to pay. For each minute that they have to wait for this child or to transport the child, the district is responsible for $2 for each minute. So now that's a problem for me because you all know that special education students, it takes a while to get to that bus. It takes a while to get them loaded. It takes a while to put them on a car seat. And to charge the district $2 per minute of waiting is unacceptable. Then we have ALC schools and transportation. The question I have, that's not a big problem for me. The question I have on that one is, what is the difference between 19 and 17?
I'll answer the first question first. So on number 17, Caravan Care's policy of charging a wait time, that I don't have data. I could find out about how often that particular charge is adjudged to us based on waiting. My understanding is that is based on not a reasonable attempt to make it to the vehicle. Remember, these are students who are picked up at their residence or just outside their residence, but rather for times when students just aren't there at all and they wait. And so typically there's a communication with the transportation office, and right away they determine whether or not this child is coming to school that day. And so I'll have to find out just how often that's charged, but that practice is to keep this process moving so they can get all the various students they have to pick up in a reasonable route time to the schools where they then are delivered. Remember that we only use this service when our special education transportation system in district is not utilized or not available.
But the problem that I have with that is, does the caravan then have a ledger where they say we contacted the parents, we will be arriving in the next 10 minutes, and we contacted the person, we're arriving in the next 5 minutes? Or are they just going to get up to the front door and now each minute begins to be a problem?
The route time, the pickup times are predetermined and set. So they don't call, they simply have a preset arrival time. So even if they get there early, they don't start the clock and they don't go to the door. That's not how any of that works. So like I said, I don't know if that charge has even ever been levied against the district, but I'm certainly willing to find that out. This does provide a critical transportation measure for our students who are, in some cases, require more support in transportation or more restraints than we can provide in our district buses. And so we do utilize Caravan Care and the other service quite extensively, but sometimes only for a short period of time. So but it is a critical part of our transportation infrastructure for a small number of students. The reason there are two is because Caravan Care and ALC, or the other one listed in item 19, really are required to provide the service that we need. Neither company can provide the transportation we require solely on its own.
Well, my feeling about this is that until you get that cleared, we will hold off until we bring it back and it is cleared, that they are very sure, because once we sign off on this, they are going to say we signed and we are responsible for this $2 a piece. So they wait for a child for 10 minutes and now we are hooked on something because we agreed. A contract is a contract.
Agreed. But I just caution that we have no other way to transport these students. So for that, if you would consider approving it for a short period of time and give us the ability to continue to provide transportation for these students to get to school.
Is it taking effect right now then? I mean, it's for the school year, right?
We just started, so we're placing these students and getting those routes built right now.
So
This would have to then wait till September before we could transport these children to school.
when is it supposed to start transporting?
August 10th is what the contract
Tomorrow
date
morning.
Oh,
begins.
tomorrow morning.
But again, we will do what the board suggests. I could bring that data back in September. We would just need a different measure to get these children to school for 1 month. We have used this company for many years.
We've in the past,
Mhm.
and they've always billed this amount in the past.
Not knowing this for sure, I don't know if they have billed, if their structure was different in years past. I'll have to research that.
I mean, as far as I can understand what Maria is saying, but I think for the betterment of what we need to do now, I'd be a move for approval.
And I understand the concern, Ms. Opar, about this contract and that language.
Can we approve for a limited amount of time?
They may balk at that, though.
We may have to have a special board meeting to do that because we have a contract and we would have to amend that without their signature. And so we could work to not utilize this service if that becomes an issue.
And do we have any idea how many students are impacted by this?
I would say it's typically about a half dozen students. So
And
Not
we're
a lot.
utilizing our own like CSEA employees. first and
Absolutely.
buses
Every
first
single
before we
bus.
contract out.
thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes. First, we utilize all in-district transportation. And I'll maybe defer to Mr. Schulenberg if there's a further point on that.
No, yeah, we absolutely utilize our in-district transportation if we can, but sometimes it comes down to the type of supervision a certain student may need. We might not be able to accommodate that in one of our buses. So we utilize these third-party companies, or a new student comes to us with certain needs that we cannot get routed on one of our buses right away. So we use either one of these companies as a short-term alternative to transport until we can get them on one of our routes.
Thank you.
Mr. Conrad was able to find a prior contract and they had a, after 30-minute wait time, $1 per minute was the last year's contract.
And then they just gave us a 100% increase
They did.
on a minute instead of 30. So now
Yeah.
there's a problem here. So they gave us 30 minutes last year. And this year, they give us per minute. So they've given us 100%, 100 and something percent increase. You know, and that, I'm really struggling with it.
I understand. So the choices I see for us are to either be able to utilize this service or not. We are one of several districts who utilizes Caravan Care for this kind of exact situation.
I would hate for a student to not be able to attend school, though. Is there a way for us, like Mr. Raleigh was saying, to approve it maybe for 1 month while perhaps we try to negotiate something more reasonable back to how it used to be? Like,
Let me ask
Is
a
that
question.
fine?
Mr. Schellenberg, in the contract, we can, I'm not in their contract, I'm in our consultant agreement where it says satisfactory service. It appears that we have an ability to only pay for satisfactory service. So if there becomes some kind of an issue where we are being overcharged and we have tried to rectify that, we would not have to use them. We would have an ability to cancel. Is that correct?
Well, that's correct. And if the board approves item number 19, we have another option with the Ever-Driven Technologies LLC. So having the two companies at our disposal to transport when needed.
I
But
don't
yes,
have I don't have a problem with number 19. I was just asking about the difference between those two because 19 was clear enough to say that we're going to use the most fragile students is who we're going to be picking up if we don't have that. So number 19, I was just asking for the difference. So I don't have a problem approving number 19, but I have a problem with number 17.
There's also the option in our consultant agreement for us to essentially nullify the contract if we believe the services are unsatisfactory. Why don't I bring a report back on actual billing to determine whether or not the board believes it's fair and appropriate? And at that time, if you say no, we will terminate contract.
That would be fair.
that way we
Okay.
can make sure that we're
That
not
would be fair.
wasting
Thank you.
tax money, but we're also.
And we will verify
taking care of
because
our
I believe
students.
one has a different type of transportation available to a student need. If we had a student on a gurney, one offers it, one does not.
Yeah,
So,
they aren't exactly the same. They
Right.
have slight differences.
It's
but we
slight
could
difference.
maybe negotiate costs and different things. So let's see what, if it's the board's desire to approve it, then we can bring back data to see how many times we were charged last year for the overage. And then we can monitor this month
Mhm.
and come back at the September board meeting with some information.
I move that we make approval of 17 with the stipulation that Superintendent Nelson and Slosser noted.
Get us more information.
Absolutely.
I'll
Understood.
second.
I'll approve it that way. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so let's move on.
Was that 17 and 19 or just 17?
17 is where you get more information for us. 19, we're approving 17 and 19.
I make a
You'll
motion.
You'll have
we
to take a
approve-
vote
I make a
on, so,
motion that we
there you
approve
go.
That was
19.
17, yeah.
So Mr. Raleigh just made a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then number 17, right? Is that the one you made? the
No,
motion?
you've already done
Okay.
19 and
Okay, go
17.
ahead.
You're on to 31.
Okay, 31. You pulled it.
Number 31 deals with the ratification of the consultant agreement regarding community schools implementation. And I know there's widespread support for community schools in our district. I have been hearing some concerns from community members, though, of the feeling of lack of participation, that parents, teachers, union members, there's the perception that they're not being involved in this process. And so I just wanted some further discussion on that.
Yeah, Mr. Arce, we applied for the planning grant, which was the beginning phase. It's a very small amount of money in order to utilize this year, or even actually earlier than the end of this year to apply, to make the decision to apply for the implementation grant. In order to do that, we have not gone farther out than just a small core group to decide whether or not we can even impact the community utilizing this. So we identified sites such as Granite Hills High School, Yuckaloma Elementary School, Phoenix Academy, High Desert Premier as some of the sites that would be a focus within the district that would cover many of the areas, families that are most in need. And we will be moving forward to expand that. We just met with the union regarding this. Karen mentioned it, and there will be stakeholders from every one of those groups involved.
And do we have a timeline of how soon that collaboration will happen?
Yeah, Pat can.
I can speak to that. The next step, actually, we had a webinar today that Ms. Sabers was invited to attend, and it was kind of the first gatherings. They're going to be our technical assistance committee for this effort will be San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools Office. They have a dedicated arm. And so there'll be some convenings throughout the month of August to begin the process of identifying an asset mapping process and a survey that we will then take out. I spoke to Karen about this with Mr. Todd the other day, that the first thing we would do is bring to all stakeholders a chance to look at a sample survey, just to get a sense of what the needs would be. And that would, of course, go to parents, students, staff, and other community members with interest in this, to kind of get a sense of what the needs are in the community that surrounds each of the school sites. So in brief, you will see over the next several months, initial steps being taken. And so each step along the way will include now all the community partners that are going to need to be part of this. This is merely facilitation that would ensure that we stay on that. Anyone can do this facilitation. We made this selection based on our best professional estimate of who could help us the most. But yes, we are certainly now at the stage that we have earned the planning grant to begin doing just that, which is planning. And so the planning process will include all of our community partners and educational partners to do that work. And, we got some good information today. The soonest we would be able to apply for the first implementation steps for our schools would probably be sometime in January when that request for application would go out. But of course, we have 2 years to do this. So we could do that in several cohorts. And this would be some support to just make sure we stay true to the service along the way. But yes, it would be a large room.
If I may, since there's so much interest in this topic, in this agreement, why don't we postpone it until we hear from Mr. Powell and have him do a presentation here? I mean,
Excellent.
I
That-
yeah, I had a couple questions with it too.
yeah, I mean, this is the second time it's come up. And with this type of money, it'd be nice to hear from the consultant himself instead of just ratifying it through consent.
Got it.
So
We love that.
back on April 4th, we approved $12,000. And it would be nice to know kind of how that 12,000 has been spent if we're being asked to approve another 20,000. And I mean, I was just kind of looking at the numbers, and it said that he was being offered at a rate of $400 an hour for the consultation services. And then his professional development services for the full day was going to be just shy of $6,000. And I know that obviously that's not at $400 an hour, but when I was really kind of trying to look into it, I know he was an expert specifically more on like the mental health and the trauma informed areas,
Mhm.
but we also have that contract with the Desert Mountain Cell Bus, correct? So don't we have access to a lot of that information?
Actually, we're a consortium. It's not a contract. We're a consortium. And there is, he is the one they bring in as well to talk about these topics. The state has.
But we wouldn't be paying for it twice that way, or?
No, they don't have the capacity to do that work the same way he would do the work. We are more than willing to have him come do a presentation of what the information about facilitation is versus what the board's desire is.
Okay. Specifically, maybe just what's been done so far with that first amount that we've approved.
Well, we can actually
Yeah, we
respond.
can speak
Go
to
ahead,
that.
Pat.
We didn't bill for that. He didn't bill for that entire amount. That was a not to exceed amount. And so we used him for, I think, 2 full day sessions and a half day That was what were able to develop and write a successful planning grant that was funded at the state level. So that was what that process was utilized to do.
Well, I'll make the motion that we continue it and put it on as business of the board, the next meeting for a presentation on this topic, and then we can take it up again in September.
Understood.
Okay.
So I made the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we go on to,
37.
I'll go to 30.
Hang on just a second. You're not going to vote on it because it's polled.
There's no
So
vote.
no vote. If you vote, you're voting to approve it or not approve it. So if it's
Well, the
going to be
motion was-
tabled,
The motion was to continue it and get a presentation on it before voting on it. That was just a motion to push it to September.
yeah, you're tabling it. There,
Okay, that's
there doesn't
fine.
need to be a vote. So you're good. We've got the notes. We'll pull them in. It's
Okay,
great.
Thank you.
Okay, item 37.
Oh, yeah.
Item 37, I pulled it because I had no idea that we are getting a license for kids to fly drones. So can somebody explain that to me?
The FFA.
Yes.
Go ahead, Pat.
This will allow our our teachers and staff members who are responsible for the students' programs, who use all kinds of aerial drone footage in the development of films and other video content, to be appropriately licensed to operate those increasingly large drones in compliance with Federal Aviation Administration rules. And we'll essentially license them as drone pilots in that particular setting under a certain size drone. It will then allow them to be able to train our students to do that, which in that career field is becoming a necessary skill. Drone footage, if you go really just any website, has become just sort of a necessary component of presentation, whether it be real estate, development of the Silverwood project our students were a part of, and even places where sports footage often includes drone footage. We want to do this the right way with the appropriate licensing so that we send these students out into the world career ready with the appropriate credentials and licensure.
Thank you. That's all. That caught my attention.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. It's pretty exciting.
And then I pulled item number 41.
Are you going to take a vote and a motion and vote on 37?
37?
Move 37 for approval.
I
second.
second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item number 41 is to approve the swimming pool agreement with the town of Apple Valley. That is near and dear to me. But the question that I have is when the pool shuts down and we have to transport our kids to another pool area or to transport them to, or even to cancel the event, do we lose money by doing so? If we've ever done it.
Well, one great thing with the partnership with the town we've had over the years with the swimming pool is when they do have to do work or close the facility, they really work around our athletic schedules and do it when our kids don't need to be in the water. They've been a great partner with that pool over the years, and losing money has not been an issue in the past.
Thank you. Any other question? I move that we approve item number 41.
I'll second it.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
We don't have any another closed session. Do we have any more action to be taken? I would like the superintendent to go out and talk to Harvey again about what it costs to send a team of staff members to go on the trip that he puts together in the summer to retrace the Underground Railroad, so that we'll have an idea of what it will cost if there are people who are interested in going. So that's your charge. All right. We need to adjourn. I need a
I'll
motion.
move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Renee, do we have signing to do?
You wanted me to do something. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to